Kaitlin Hoyt, at Kaitlin Hoyt on Instagram, is as much in love with art as she is with nature. Yet, she didn't pursue either, at least not consciously. Instead, her passion subjects found their way back to her and helped her shape her life. Join us today as we talk about the truth about the so called talent, how to efficiently retain knowledge, what to do when you're just getting started with art, and tips on layering with gouache. Want to be part of the show? Then send in your questions or topics you'd like to see covered to our email at hello@etralab.com. If you send us an audio recording, we might include it in the episode. Hi, I'm Anya, and this is Make More Art, a podcast by Etcher, meant to inspire you to keep on creating. Now let's hear from our guest. Okay, Kaitlin, my first question for you is, in your Instagram profile, you say wildlife illustrator and nature enthusiast. What came first, the enthusiast for nature because it's nature or the art aspect of it?
That's kind of an interesting question because when I was younger, I was always very outdoorsy, and then I found I kind of drifted away from that as I got older, and then I just drew a lot, so it was very separate for me for a long time. And it actually wasn't until probably 2019 when I kind of rediscovered that love of nature and combined it with art at the same time. So they kind of simultaneously.
So, in other words, you kind of always loved nature. Why did you stop being so outdoorsy? How old were you? Do you remember?
Um, well, I moved to Edmonton, Alberta, which is like a big kind of industrial city in Canada. And I moved there probably around maybe 5 years old. And I was there till maybe I was 8. And then, yeah, and then I just never really connected with it again, or it wasn't at the forefront of my mind like it is now for sure.
So, was it when you moved out when you were about 8 that you started going out so much?
Yeah, it was like before that, like when I was
Okay.
very young, lived in like a wooded area, so I had access to a brook all the time. And then yeah, I stepped away from I was still outdoorsy enough, but I wasn't like, oh, I need to go play with frogs like right now, like I used to.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid and I was playing with worms all the time. And
Yeah.
the other moms were like to my mom, like, what are you doing? Why'd you let her play with worms? She's like, oh, come on, what's the worst thing? Like, let her play with worms. Just, let the kid be.
Oh
Let
yeah,
kids have
playing with
fun.
a kid is like the funnest thing when you're 5 years old.
And when did you start with drawing?
I've always kind of drawn. Um, yeah, since I was a really young kid, I drew a lot. I actually drew people for most of my life.
Oh.
So again, that was kind of a weird switch. I have kind of a weird story. So
I want to know
I
all about your witch. Tell me everything.
yeah, it's kind of unconventional. So I started when I was really young. I used to draw like wolves and stuff. Wolves were like a crazy obsession of mine for like a few years at least. And then I only drew people for like 7 years. And then a few years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, I can draw animals again. Like that kind of connects nature and art for me. So it was kind of like an aha moment, even though it seems so obvious.
The most obvious thing are only obvious when it clicks. It might be obvious to anyone else, but at least I think for us, when we're doing them, I mean, it takes a long time for things to click. It's not obvious to us. That's why a circle of friends that understands us and what we like is so valuable, because they can see things that we are blind to, and they can help us point in the right direction. But yeah, so it clicked for you. Can you more or less pinpoint the time in your life when you clicked art and nature together?
Yeah. For me, the biggest, most memorable thing is probably when I was at the University of New Brunswick. I was getting a degree that was like a wellness focused degree. And in my very last course of my last year of my university degree, it was a mindfulness course. And for our last project, we had to research the effects of art on mindfulness and like mental health. So
Wow.
yeah, so it kind of everything just kind of super clicked with me, and I was like, wow, like this makes sense. And then it combined my feeling of nature, because for me, nature was always this kind of like spiritual thing where it made me feel like, okay, I can finally relax.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like having all of those pieces kind of fit together all of a sudden, I was like, okay, wow, like I need to do something with this.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So now I have more questions. I love this. Okay. So you always drew. You liked outdoors, and then later in college, you clicked two and two together, and your art became more focused on your love for nature, which is great. Now you are studying wellness. So what's the story there? So you liked art as a kid, but you went to study wellness. Why and when did art become such a strong thing that you had to pursue it professionally?
Hmm. Yeah. So in high school, I was really into art, and I thought that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I actually did go to an art school for 1 year, even though
Okay.
only half of it was even focused on art. But I did go for 1 year, and I don't know if I didn't like the program, or I was just like the realization of being a full-time artist, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of scared the crap out of me. So I was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, step away from this. So what had happened was at the end of that 1 year of school, I like gained a bunch of weight. So I was like, okay, well now I need to work out and like get back into shape. And through that process, I kind of fell in love with health and fitness. So then
Wow.
that different separate passion, completely separate passion, kind of developed. And then it's just funny how like I don't know that it kind of transgressed into wellness, and then the mental aspect of it came into play eventually. So it's all connected. Like I can see it looking back on my life, like how every little piece kind of fits together. But at the time you're just like, oh my God, my life is a mess, like what's going on.
Oh my God, I love that you're saying it like that because so many of us feel that way. You know, there's this archaic expectation of society from us that it's like you go to school to study everything, you decide what you like to do for the rest of your life. Then you pursue it in college because you're sure by then everyone is obviously super sure that's what they want to do for a living. And then you finish that degree, hopefully with good grades, and then you work on that for the rest of your life until you're very old, and then you're happy and you die a happy person. When in reality it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Oh my God, I'm a kid, that's fine. I have no idea what I'm doing. Oh, I'm a teenager, that's kind of okay. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm almost an adult, that's kind of concerning. The truth is, no one has any freaking idea what they're doing their whole lives, and we're all figuring it out. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. And nothing is certain because, like you said, you went through like what you were studying, you went through different paths until things clicked for you and put you in this direction. And by the way, you and no one can tell the future, so you're this path now, but nothing will stop you from doing something else entirely in a year or 10 years, we don't know. And like for myself, I'm 30 now, but I studied graphic design after so in Portugal when we go to high school we pick a field, and I picked arts. But I was afraid of living, like making a living out of being an artist, because in here there's no jobs, like in most of the world. So I went to graphic design because that sounded like, something that actually gets you a job. And yeah, I did the whole degree and I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. And then I started working on the field and I didn't like it as much. And if you ask me what I do today, I cannot put a label on it. I mean, well, I host a podcast for Etcher, and I do like these live demos. Like I host the live demos for them, and I help train the team. So in one way, I'm like, so if you want to go corporate and like be like, I have a real job, I'll be like, oh, I'm a team leader or something like that. That sounds really good. I'm an art director. Oh my God, that sounds really good. What in life, it's like I do, a couple of things that I really love doing, and I teach on the side, and it makes me happy, and I'm making like art because I love it, and that's it. And there's no label, and people are like, I'm sorry, lady, I do not understand exactly what is that you do. Poor you. There must be something wrong.
It's so bad.
So yeah. I don't know where this rant came from, but I'm very much empathizing with you on that aspect. That it's like no one knows what they're doing, and sometimes it feels like it's the right thing, and other times it feels like we hope it will take us somewhere that it will feel right in the future. And that's more or less what happened for you. Things were clicking, and you were just playing with the cards you were dealt, and you just kept going.
Oh yeah, just everything. It's like you'll have this impression of what you want to do in your mind, but you don't know until you actually go into practice, like with your graphic design. You don't know how you actually feel about something until you're applying your knowledge and in the field working. So it takes a lot of trial and error for sure.
Yeah, I once heard the story of a 50-something-year-old lady that told her husband she'd like to be a doctor, but she was too old. And her husband just said, would you rather be a 70-year-old lady who wishes she was a doctor, or a 70-year-old lady who was a doctor, you know? And she did,
Yeah,
and she studied, and she became a doctor. So that's like,
that's amazing.
yeah, you're never too old. It's not, oh my God, let's not. Okay, so back to your life. So you studied wellness, and just out of curiosity, so I can kind of link it with the art you're making, what what do you study in wellness?
So my degree was kinesiology, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's like a subset of that degree where it's more humanities based. So there's different like streams within it. So I took this wellness stream. So basically, it was preparing me to work in different health organizations that help the general public with their health, like
Mm-hmm.
things like promoting fitness and healthy diet, things like that. That was what I was gearing up to do.
Wow. So is it accurate to say that you want to help people live their lives to the fullest in a healthy way? Is that like something you were passionate about?
Yeah, I think so. That's probably the underlying theme behind everything. It's even with my art, I get a lot of fulfillment from teaching. So I think there must be some kind of correlation there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because you're an amazing artist, and I'm always in love with your bird paintings. And oh my God, like you know your anatomy for either birds or felines or anything. It's mind blowing to me. So now going back into the art a little bit, can you expand a little bit more on what you just said? So how is where is this connection between wellness and art? So what kind of impact does art leave on you and on the people that you teach? How is this all related, if that makes any sense?
I don't know. There is like definitely an element of learning that I really, really enjoy. Like I love studying, and that's why I had to go back to school the second time, because it was this like I need to learn, I need to kind of expand my mind. And there is this thing with art where it's an infinite amount of knowledge you can gain. It's like this just unending well that you
Wow.
can dip into. So that's been just a huge source of intrigue for me, I guess, just wanting to know how deep that well goes and how much skill I can gain from that. And then with teaching, I find that actually helps me as well. Like it helps me kind of retain the things that I'm learning. So
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a mutually beneficial experience. But then I also like seeing that click in other people when they draw something and it's like, oh yeah, like I get what you're trying to say. That's the most rewarding thing. It's just the same as me drawing and it clicking for me.
I can relate. I feel the
Yeah.
same when I teach. It's just like, oh, yes, I was able to positively impact someone's life. That day is so
Yeah.
much better. Ah, I love that feeling. And I love what you said about teaching helping retain knowledge. I was reading this book, I forgot what book it was, and it was talking about how when you have to explain something to someone else, something you know, but you have to vocalize it, the two parts of your brain, the limbic system and the other one that I forgot the name, have to contact with each other.
Mhm.
So a part of your brain, one is responsible for emotion, and the other one is responsible for language. And when you have to convey something deeply, that it connects to you, if you don't word it, it's connected to you in an emotional level. You understand it, and that's emotion. You just don't know how to voice it. So when you have to explain it to someone else, the emotional part of your brain needs to connect with the logical part of your brain so you can put words on the emotion.
Right.
And that's when it clicks. And it makes a lot of sense for you, because the struggle that you have to go to vocalize something you're experiencing, it's what does what you were saying, that helps you retain the knowledge and get that, at an intrinsic level, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It is so helpful to actually try and explain and I use that technique even when I was studying at university. So it's funny how that interlaps too.
And now let's be like super geeky about the art. So piggybacking on teaching, you will be doing a live demo with us this coming February 16th.
Yep.
What will you be doing for this live demo?
So basically I'm going to be teaching people how to look at reference images and then kind of translate onto their paper. So very basic skills of just building your observation, basically. And then I'm going to also be giving them some like basic construction tips to help them understand the anatomy at a very basic level. And then and then I'm going to be teaching them how to use like interesting line work and things like that to kind of bring that drawing to life and make it more interesting, because I don't know, I like to stylize my drawings a little bit, and I think a lot of people seem to resonate with that. They want it to look a little bit different than the photograph, so that's what I'm going for.
That's amazing, because when you're stylizing a drawing, what goes through your brain when you're trying to stylize a drawing from a reference photo?
For me, I really focus on shapes. I want to find the biggest, most interesting shape. And interesting shape is kind of a vague thing that I don't know how to describe necessarily, but because I like geometric or like more organic, flowy shapes, just whatever is speaking to me in that photograph, I want to exaggerate that, just like a caricaturist would, like with someone's portrait, but just being able to take those main features and emphasize them in such a way that it draws the interest, it exaggerates that interest. So with shapes or with different marks and the different textures, like how do you simplify a texture? I find that really interesting.
And you will be showing exactly how you do that in this live demo, so I'm very excited for that. What materials will we be using for the live demo?
We will just be using some plain old pencils or pens, any kind of drawing materials, super basic, probably have it at home already.
Awesome, good. So it's totally focused on drawing and building an image from reference. This is really cool, and it's something that all of us need, no matter the experience level, because it's back to fundamentals again. So piggybacking on that, you're a really good drawer and painter.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming that came with a lot of practice and study.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about fundamentals and what those are, or man, I can't draw this, so I'm not good at drawing, when maybe the secret that is not so secret is practice, 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 practice. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I asked that because I've been in person, like that's the first thing I will rant on, is this people thinking that they're not talented, so that they're just never able to draw, when really it's just a matter of dedicating yourself and getting past that initial hump of like feeling really uncomfortable and really awkward and clunky because you've never done this before. And that that would come with literally any new skill. It's just, for me, it comes a little bit easier because I did it since I was a kid. So that awkward phase came just a little bit earlier, so maybe you don't remember it as much, but it would have happened. And I still experience that like every day. It doesn't always come easy. So it's learning to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, for sure, and just taking it day by day, being very consistent. And I know people hate to say, or hate to hear, like, oh yeah, you got to practice to get good at something. They want like some kind of secret, but it really is just daily, focused practice, and then you'll get a hang of it.
Then what you're saying is when someone feels like they were not cut out for drawing, that's part of the process. It's not a complete, like you're out of it. You're like, you can't do it. No, it's like, oh, congratulations. You realize how hard this is. You're one step closer to being able to doing
Exactly.
this.
Yeah. And it's overwhelming at first because there's so much to kind of comprehend, especially with like something like drawing. There's anatomy, there's like how you hold your pencil, there's perspective, yada yada yada, all those fundamentals. And I get why somebody coming in for the first time would feel totally intimidated and want to like back off from that. So hopefully with this class, I can kind of ease them in a little bit with like the basic drawing. You need to learn how to draw before you paint if you're doing like subjective type painting. So that's hopefully that will help people kind of overcome that initial kind of weird, awkward phase.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like, oh, I want to learn how to play piano, so give me the music sheets for a Beethoven symphony so I can start practicing. And it's like, actually, no. John Kaitlin for her live demo, and instead of, going through the boring of just learning the scales or music theory, which is like the best way to kill someone's love for music when they haven't even started. She's like, oh, you want to learn how to draw? Then just study anatomy, and then we'll talk. So instead of going through that is extremely boring and will take you the joy out of art making, and we want the exact opposite, we want this to be fun, then join Kaitlin February 16th, and you will be playing like Itsy Bitsy Spider, maybe, if I'm gonna do a metaphor with some music. This will be fun. I know you work with different mediums. What is your favorite?
Right now it's probably gouache, which is like an opaque watercolor for anyone who's not familiar with that. It's funny because I don't like watercolor. For some reason, the transparency kind of messes with my head and I can't, that's why I really like acrylic too. That's probably my number two. And that's, I guess we'll be doing another class with that, but we can cut that out.
No. It's like, it's here. It's a promise. We should be doing a gouache or something after this. We will have you back, Kaitlin.
Yes, for sure. I'd love to do gouache too. I get a lot of people asking about gouache because it's kind of a really misunderstood medium, but it's very, very interesting.
Good. And can you talk a little bit about the biggest struggles you faced when painting with gouache and how you overcame those?
Yeah. So because gouache can be used either transparently or opaquely, so like if I wanted to water it down and use it transparently, or if I wanted to use it straight out of the tube and have it be more of a opaque finish, there is this balancing act you need to find between knowing when to let the light areas be the whiteness of the paper versus the white areas be the mixed white paint. If you there's that, like, knowing when to be transparent, when to be opaque is, and like then also how to layer properly, because obviously the colors are water soluble, so they'll lift if you add too many layers or if you add too thickly right away. So there is a definite learning curve.
How did you overcome those struggles? How did you learn? I mean, is there any highlights that you can share with us?
Yeah, there's some basic technique where they call it what's the consistency? Anyway, you just go really, really light and then you gradually get thicker with the paint as you go along. So what I've done recently, I just kind of figured out, is if I outline my sketch with the opaque gouache paint, then it kind of sets that tone in my mind, like, okay, now I need to go this opaque. And so it's really about finding like what our natural tendencies are as artists, and then kind of catering to that in a way that kind of gets us help with our bad habits. You know what I mean? We all have bad habits as artists. Like we need to find a way to kind of shortcut those and prop up the things that really enjoy when we work.
Smart. Yeah, when I was before I draw a lot with pens or like ink brush, and before that I use a lot of pencils, and I was like doing like very quick lines, but at the same time very short lines and going over and over and over, and then I'm like, okay, I have to stop this. I'm noodling everything. I'm just gonna grab a pen and I'm just gonna make a mark, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So that gave me the confidence to make bold marks, and it was working. And then later I realized that I was just doing bold marks on top of each other and just like building them, and I was noodling in a different way. So I'm like, what is wrong with me? I always find a way to noodle everything. So I just changed again the kind of, from graphic pen I changed to brush. And I think for now, I overcame that. For now, I'm sure my brain will find a way to noodle oh my god. It's like, I do it, and then when I'm about to get my hand on the drawing line, stop, just don't touch it. Don't touch it. The shape is clear. You're not gonna add anything. Just move on. Stop noodling and get
It's all finding those bad habits. It really is. And that's something like the more you draw and more you paint, like you see that more clearly as you go on, for sure.
Good. Now I'm curious about our audience's bad habits, and I will ask about that. I'm gonna add a call to action at the end for that. Now I want to know what you find that is annoying and how you try to overcome it. And if you didn't, let's find out solutions. This is gonna be fun. Okay, before we wrap up, do you have any last words you'd like to leave us?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I would love to see you at my workshop. That would be great. And it's been so nice chatting with you and kind of talking through my experiences a little bit. I know my story is kind of all over the place, so it's helpful to try and create a kind of linear thing with that. So
most artists don't do linear. When we're meant to go into art making, we end up there.
Yeah.
And I find these stories amazing and so enriching. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, just saying, like, it works out that way. Like, when you're meant to do something, it's kind of your calling. You do find it one way or another eventually. Like, it just has a way. As Jeff say, life finds a way.
And hey, to you listening to this, if you love art but you have another kind of job, that's totally fine. If you're a hobbyist instead of being a professional artist, that's not the point. Being an artist is great no matter if you're a hobbyist or if you're a professional, as long as you make time for what you love, and what you love is art. That's what matters.
Yeah, 100%.
What are your other passions? Is there something else that you love as much as you love art? And have you found a way to bring it to your artistic journey? Please tell us your stories in the comment section of the post associated with this episode at etchrlab.com/Hoyt. That's etchrlab.com/HOYT. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, simply let us know in the comment section below.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please help us keep the show alive. You can subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts at etchrlab.com/go/Apple. Or if you're more of a YouTube viewer, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our most recent videos. Sharing is caring, and every little bit helps. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Until then, let's make more art.